And this is episode 22 of the Lifestyle Entrepreneur Podcast. And my guest today is Gary Barnes, who lives right here in Colorado here with me and has become a really good friend. And I'm so excited because he's going to share really how to create on-purpose results in your business. And he's got a signature process and a step-by-step blueprint really to help you create the results that you're looking for finally in your business. Welcome to the Lifestyle Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Kris Gilbertson, and I'm an author, speaker, and a coach to teaching you how to launch your own successful podcast. And the reason I designed this show is to bring you the top lifestyle entrepreneur experts from all over the world for them to share their key strategies that they've used to launch their own businesses and allow them to live life on their own terms. So tune in every Friday for new episodes and come on over and join the Lifestyle Entrepreneur community at www.lifestyleacademy.com. There you're going to receive VIP training from specific guests from the podcast, along with being able to watch all of the interviews. And I'll also be making it really easy for you to implement these strategies that you're hearing by sending you what I like to call the Lifestyle Cliff Notes on the best lessons learned on the podcast. So let's get started. All right, so before we get started with the show, I just want to thank everyone who is subscribing and leaving awesome reviews in iTunes. I'm so excited that people are enjoying these interviews. And I'm excited to announce First Fridays. So what I'm going to be doing the first Friday of every month, we're going to have a raffle for those of you that have subscribed to the podcast and then also left a review. And it'll be a raffle for $25 gift cards from iTunes, Amazon, eBay, all over the place. So all you simply need to do is just subscribe to the podcast in iTunes and then leave us a review and your name will go in a hat and we'll announce that the first Friday of every month. And this week's winner for First Friday raffle here in October of 2013 goes out to Drew Griffin. I just pulled his name out of the hat and I'm super excited. So email me over at Kris@KrisGilbertson.com so I can send you your gift card and let me know if you want Amazon, iTunes, or eBay, and we'll send you out your gift. So again, thanks for being a loyal listener, and everybody else, make sure you subscribe to the podcast in iTunes and then leave us a review so we can definitely put your name in the hat for First Friday raffle so that you can enter for your chance to win. And remember, you're in it until you win it. Well, welcome. I am so honored and excited for my guest today. He's actually a local here in Denver that I just got introduced to a few weeks ago, and we've become fast friends, and I'm so excited. His name is Gary Barnes, and he's America's traction coach, and he's a popular international speaker, author, and high-performance business and sales coach. And his clients span over 7 countries, and he's been seen on ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox. And he's the founder of Gary Barnes International, and he's built over 3 successful businesses from the ground up. And to do this, what's so brilliant is what Gary has developed are principles and tools that help business owners increase their business over 1,800. Let me back that up. It's 1,800% over a 4-year period. So it's absolutely phenomenal, fast-paced growth that he's been able to accomplish and for his clients. And so Gary's books include Spend and Grow Rich, Understanding Our Emotional and Psychological Relationship with Money, and How a Beaver Saved My Life, the real-life dramatic story about dealing with adversity and turning it into triumph. And so I'm so excited and honored to have Gary here today. So welcome. How are you?
Well, I'm wonderful. Good morning. I just am so excited about being here with you. And you're right. You know, it seems like we've known each other for a very long time, but it really hasn't been yet.
Right, exactly. But I love that. I love that we can meet people out of the blue and that relationship just blossoms right away. So it's absolutely amazing. So I want you to dive right into your story, how you got started, and really about the beaver story and how you became an expert and how that's really helping people all over the world overcome their adversities.
Well, my early background, it really led directly to what I do now, and there's a direct connection because I was a theology and psychology major in college.
Oh.
No, not really. That, but I told it really, that it was my major, but it had nothing to do really with what I do today.
Right.
And yet it does have that connection. But over the years, I found myself square peg in a round hole within systems. And so I went into real estate, spent 9 years in real estate, My first 10 months, I made $1,975. At the end of the year, I told my wife, and she said, "That's gross." I said, "You're correct. We have to take our expenses out of that." And she said, "Please go get a real job." The next year, I kept doing the same things that I had established that first 10 months. I was salesman of the year for a very large real estate organization in Southern California. Out of that, I developed one of the very first financial planning firms. There was no such thing when I started that financial planning as an industry. Back
Wow.
then, we were all stockbrokers, insurance agents, real estate. And when I used to say that I was an estate planner, they would say, "Well, great. Could you come over to the house and tell me where to plant the tree?" I go, "Not that kind of an estate." But over the years, I had built that business up and it became one of the largest, well, it was in the top 3%
Wow.
of financial planning firms in the country,
Wow.
and I was the only producer. But through all of that experience as well, in 1988, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. I was told I'd be dead or in a wheelchair in 10 years, and I didn't like that option, so I wanted to look for another one.
Yeah.
And so that was the birth of how a beaver saved my life, because it was in 1988. There wasn't a lot known about um, visualizations and really putting your future into a present tense. And naturally, it was just an instinct. I did that, and that process literally did save my life because well, we're 24, 25 years later, and
Yes.
I'm still here.
Yep. Yeah. It's that's such an amazing story, and everything that you've paved the way for. I mean, you've been an originator in a lot of fields, and I think that's so brilliant and so amazing. So, what I want you to talk about is let's just dive right into the process because it's just brilliant what you do and how you've helped so many people and why you are America's traction coach. So, you have a process through your on purpose results that really teaches entrepreneurs, business owners, how to kind of fuse their business and life to get results no matter what area they're looking for. So can you break that down? And I know visualization is part of that, so that's why I wanted to just get right into it. So you have a 10-step process, but why don't we just start with the first 5 steps? Because I don't know if we'll have enough time to go through everything.
Oh, I know. We could be here for 3 weeks and still not cover
Yes,
it all, right?
exactly.
Well, I think the very first thing is, we don't have roadmaps. We don't know where we're going outside of we want more, we want to increase our revenue, we want more time off, but we really don't have a clear picture of that future result. And the way I describe dream building, most of us have, gone through a dream building process at one time or another. Oh, well, let me ask you, at New Year's Eve, there used to be a ritual. What was that ritual that everyone did New Year's Eve year after year?
Well, set your New Year's resolutions.
Absolutely. And I have spoken to tens of thousands of individuals around the country and actually around the world. And I ask the question, do they still do it? And I get maybe if there's 500 people in a room, I get maybe five.
Oh, really?
And then I follow up with a question, why don't you do that anymore? And the most common answer I get is, why would I want to feel bad on January 3 when I'm already so far behind that I know that I cannot catch up? And so we have taught ourselves not to dream. But it's
Yeah.
beyond dreaming, taking it to goal setting. But the third step is really the key, and that's the visualization. And that's where you go into your future and make it so real to where you can see it, taste it, and feel it. Bring that visualization back to your present and have that concept pull you towards it.
Right.
And so what we do is that we don't know why we're doing things. And my analytical clients, my driver clients, when I started into this, I tell, just be patient. This is the foundation. Because in my boot camps, in my coaching that with clients, that I believe there's 2 stages. First, we have to lay that foundation. What is it that we're going to do? Why are we going to do it? What could get in our way? One of the questions I love asking is, what obstacle could get in your way from you achieving the things that you want to achieve over the next 12 to 18 months?
Right.
And that's also a real key here, is that a lot of times people say, well, I want to be a millionaire. And they either do one of two things. I want to be a millionaire tomorrow. And I'm going, great, go rob a bank and hopefully things work out. Or they say, I want to be a millionaire in 5 years.
Right.
And so they push it out too far. We don't have that ability to think. We can push our vision really out somewhere between 12 and 18 months.
Wow.
because that's how we've been trained.
Right.
So, well, in fact, some folks argue with me. So I say, well, let's say that you're going to lose 10 pounds and your goal is to lose that 10 pounds in 3 years. When do you go to the gym?
Right. Exactly.
You've got at least 2.5 years to prepare to get to the gym.
Right. Right.
It's that balancing act between the urgency and also the ability to, how I describe it, it's not a sprint, but it's a marathon. How do we keep that momentum?
Right.
And then the real secret, how do we keep our balance?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you said so many great points there, and a lot of it is, I want us to back up for a second, because when you're talking about the goal, so that time span, that gap, and I totally, I mean, I've been there, I think most entrepreneurs have been there, we want it yesterday, or, we put it too far out because we've maybe had really aggressive goals and didn't achieve them, so now we give ourselves more space. So what is the kind of the standard that you have your clients? Do you have them focus on 90-day goals, or let's talk about that?
I like the 12-month goals because we have been so trained with, and the 12 months are automatically connected to 30-day goals. And so we really break it into 3 different modules. One is that 30-day goal. What is it that I'm going to accomplish? But a lot of times we look at, okay, what's my 30-day goal without looking at my 12-month goal.
Right.
So if we create a 12-month goal, then we can come back and create quarterly goals.
Mm-hmm.
And out of those quarterly goals, now we can create monthly goals. And out of the monthly goals, we can create daily goals. Success is designed and implemented one choice, one thought at a time.
Right.
And so it's just like losing weight or anything else. I ask people, how do you become a millionaire? And they come up with all these kind of different ideas. I go, well, the real answer is you first become a dollarer.
Right, exactly. Get your first client.
We all start at the same place.
Yeah.
Unless we're part of the Lucky Sperm Club or we win the lotto or, I never win the lotto, but it has probably something to do with I never buy a ticket.
Right, right.
I don't know if there's a correlation there, but, whatever. Yeah. And then I think one of the things you're asking is, okay, we're at a certain level. Let's say that we have been kind of stuck at $50,000 a year in revenue. And we don't seem to be able to get beyond that.
Right.
And so what is the number that really would stimulate us, but yet not freeze us, not get us more stuck?
Right.
And what I look at is somewhere between 15 and 20%. So it's almost like the analogy I use was not almost, it is like the analogy I use of a rubber band. A rubber band is not usable or useful if it's not stretched at all. If you put a pencil into a big rubber band, it just falls out.
Right.
But if you stretch a rubber band too far, what happens?
It'll break.
It breaks.
Right.
And so that fail-safe goes off and we shut down. We don't want to fail. We don't want to look silly, stupid. And so we just sabotage everything going forward.
Right.
It really is that way. And
yeah.
20% is usually a really good, you're stretching, but yet not so far that it stops you.
Right. I love that. I think that's absolutely brilliant. So you brought up a good point there then, is that coping mechanism, that fear mechanism pops up. So the first part of your process is, draw out your roadmap, and you just explain that with breaking it for a 12-year goal down into your 30-day goalie days. your goals per month. And then the second part is, how do you cope with that fear though? So even if it is 20%, sometimes for people that, it might be too much, not too much, but it still raises those fears. So how do we overcome that? What's your process on that?
It really is interesting because one of the most common beliefs that I find is that when we are engaged and we really launch, and we shouldn't have fear.
Right.
I believe fear is natural and normal, and it's our friend.
Mm-hmm.
Because without fear, we could really get into trouble. We wouldn't know when there's something to pay attention to.
Right.
And so part of it is when we look at fear as a positive and not a negative, it's only when it immobilizes us that we're afraid to move. And normally that becomes a reality when we don't have enough information. When we are just going out and just saying, okay, I'm going to throw money at this type of marketing or this advertising, or this new technology or this new, and we're just doing the hope dance.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
love that.
I just gonna throw the seeds out there, and somehow I hope it's going to come to a result into a result that I want.
Right.
It normally doesn't happen that way. In other words, it kind of connects back to number one. Why are you doing it? And what is it that you want as a result for that? Well, and here's another equation. If we look at anything that we do in business and really in life, what is the return of our time, money, and energy that we're investing? Not that we're just going to overpower it. So many people are exhausted today. And it's because they just think that they have to do more, spend more, be more in order to achieve more. And that's wrong.
Right.
The traction coach really came out of the concept that when we get some traction, normally we have to take the foot off the accelerator, off the gas, because once we take the foot off the brake, we gain speed. And if we gain too much speed, that can also be bad.
Right.
So that fear can actually work for us, knowing as a professional speaker. People say, you look so natural, you're just so calm up there. I'm going, yeah, like a duck. Calm on top and pedaling like mad under the water.
Yeah.
I don't know any speakers that are not nervous before we get on stage. And what happens is that we get on stage and we know our material. We are there for the audience, and then it kicks in.
Yeah.
Thing goes into autopilot. We are there to deliver a message. And so, but before that, when we are getting ready to get ready, then the old, the visions of disaster can come up, and what if, and it's like, no, we've done our preliminary, and there's no way to do 100%.
Right.
But we have really listened to our perfect client. What do they want? Not what they need, but what do they want? Then they're going to gravitate to us.
Yes. Yeah, I think the point, especially with taking action, that just stops everything. It stops the mad chatter in our head, and we start moving forward. And I think that's brilliant. So the next step into that process then is commitment and accountability. So let's talk about that, and what, from all the thousands of clients that you've helped and coached, what is the real secret to that?
I look at, what says a person is ready to go to the next level. And usually, let me step back. When I was 20 years old, I was a pastor. And I was giving marriage counseling to individuals after being married for 30 days. I have nightmares about the damage that I did to people. I don't know. But what did I know at 20 years old and have been married for 30 days about giving marriage counseling, marriage advice? And it's just like, yeah, I just hope everything worked out okay. And that is the same thing, though, as we get into business. We know what we know as far as we know it.
Right.
And the more that we know, the more that we know that we don't know. And it sounds like a tongue twister. In fact, I was with somebody not too long ago, and they were talking about specific technology and marketing. And all of a sudden they said, well, we don't need anybody to help us because we went online and we figured it out and everything was, and I looked at them and I said, so you're telling me that you already know everything?
Right.
And they said, oh, that becomes a very difficult and a very dangerous place. Because that is actually the absence of fear. See how these things are building up each other.
Yes.
So that absence of fear should be an indicator that you're maybe in an area that you are not as safe as you think you are.
Right.
But the accountability, I have always had coaches. I have always had, and this sounds maybe like a commercial for getting a coach. And it doesn't matter if a person connects with me, an organization, but you need to have someone or something that has an ability to see at a perspective, at an angle, a facet, areas that you cannot see.
Your blind spots, exactly.
And we all have them. I've been doing this for, multiple decades, let's just say. And I have two very high performance coaches that I deal with for me. If I didn't have that, then it would be foolish on my part. It'd be like, I love airplanes. It'd be like going up in an airplane without any communication, any radar, and flying in clouds, knowing there's mountains that are there.
Right.
So again, here's the question. When we have accountability, we have this inner, it's almost like the professor saying the paper is due on.
Yes.
But the accountability is not to that other person. That accountability transcends to yourself. The person that you see in the mirror, and you cannot hide from that person. But there's an external source. I use a lot of stories and analogies, as you know. But if you've ever bowled, and especially with little kids, they put those little
The bumpers. Yeah.
in the gutters so they don't get a gutter ball.
Yeah.
Well, I see accountability and coaching, that sort of area, as the gut or the bumpers in the gutters. That there's a lot of uh, uh, what's the word I want? But you can go a lot of different directions. But once you get outside the line too far, you need that something there to bring you back to center. So
Right.
your momentum continues you down in the direction of the result that you want.
Right.
So that accountability is one side. Making sure, and again, this is really critical, that it's an accountability to yourself,
Hmm.
and then the commitment in that is having a process and someone there to be able to say yes, you're on track or not.
Yes. And just having that little confidence of someone to bounce that idea off of. I mean, that's where, especially as entrepreneurs, because a lot of us work by ourselves, or we're working in different environments, so you have that mind chatter that's going on. So just getting that reassurance, especially for people that are coming out of the job force, especially too, because they're so used to being told what to do, that when you get on your own, you're like, whoa, wait a minute.
It's like kid in the candy store.
It is. And, we go off in these addictive patterns that take us down the wrong rabbit hole. So I think that's brilliant. So what about accountability for different types of personality types? Like, how do you keep, because everybody learns and does their business differently. So what have you figured out has kind of worked with different personality types?
Well, years ago, in the financial planning field, I went to a program where they gave us personality tests to see what type of audience would be our natural market.
Oh, wow.
And I got so depressed because it showed that only 10% of the population would ever relate to me.
Really?
And I went, well, 10%, I might as well go home and start delivering pizzas. I mean, at least I have people's addresses and they give me a tip every now and then. And what I came to realize is that it's not about my personality, it's about the person's personality that I'm dealing with.
Right.
And so it's very important to speak the language of that other person. So if I am and most speakers, it's interesting. If you ask actors, speakers, people that are out musicians, if they're an extrovert or an introvert, do you think that they would most likely tell you?
Well, just from my experience, before I would have said extrovert, but most of them I think are introverts, really.
Absolutely. But we have a tendency to look at extroverts and drivers as the two dominant, most wanted personality.
Personality.
And they aren't. You
Yeah.
look at, every personality has a positive and negative attributes. And so it's how not to change who you are, but to be able to communicate to the person that, again, we're speaking with.
Yes.
So it's how do they relate to the world, understanding whether they are a visual, auditory, or kinesthetic, and whether or not they're a expressive, a driver, a phlegmatic, or a analytical. And so you can tell this very rapidly. In fact, at the boot camp, you're coming to my boot camp,
Yeah.
and you're going to see me do this. I pull people on stage, and within 10 to 15 seconds, I will tell you what they are, having never met them.
Yeah.
Because they tell us what it is. And so all we have to do is give the information in the way that they can understand it.
Exactly.
It'd be like going to a different country and, speaking English for Americans and not, using the native language and wanting them to understand us.
Right.
It's not their obligation to, it's ours.
Right.
And so personalities, I think one of the most important things to understand out of your question is we do not have to change, but we can become a chameleon.
Exactly. Yeah, that's brilliant. I remember when I first started in sales years ago, they always would tell me, Kris, if you're saying the same thing, you're only speaking to 10% and you're missing 90% of the people you want to connect with. And then it's all about becoming that chameleon, being that mirror. Do you think that's the most important part to success with business, would you say?
It is. And the only way that we can do that is by creating a habit of what I call active listening.
Mm.
And the process of active listening is literally shutting down your thinking process. You cannot think and listen at the same time.
Yeah.
I have learned when I'm on television, when I'm on stage, when I'm doing this with you,
Hmm.
if I'm thinking about something, I'm going to miss things that you said, little nuances in how you tilt your head just then. I mean, the messages that you're giving me, I
Hmm.
would totally miss. So if we don't have the active listening really honed in, and everybody will start at the same place. It will seem odd and weird, but it's the most common thing that I've been told by people. They say, "Gary, you're clairvoyant," and I'm going, "No, I'm not. I'm just highly intuitive because
Right.
I have been trained. I trained myself to listen to what you don't tell me."
Right.
Because people they'll say things that are not connected, and if you're not listening, you'll totally miss it, and a question normally will come up. Now this is where you have to be really brave.
Hmm.
You have to go outside the box and say, well, could I ask a really different kind of question here? And then you ask it and they go, wow, how did you know that? Well, they had actually told you.
Right.
And so I think that is the very first thing. And by the active listening, you're going to also see their personality, how they relate to the world. You're going to see what their actual needs are, but they will describe them as wants.
Right. Right. So this is because we were just talking about this last week, how like when you're coaching your clients, you're like, you got to record this because I'm not going to remember what you told me or what I told you because you're so active. And that's,
Right.
I love that. And that's sometimes even with my interviews, sometimes I'll get lost because you get so into what you're doing. So how do you, because I used to be a sales manager and I used to teach a lot of people, but it was sometimes difficult to get them to understand because I always trust on my intuition and reading all the things that they're not saying. So what are the biggest cues that you can help people with when they're doing face-to-face sales or they're presenting that they can read off of people to help them?
Well, there was a program years and years ago that I spent a very large amount of money back in the 80s. And they gave me a saying. And they said, buyers that buy, buy. Buyers that don't buy, don't buy. So why work with buyers that don't buy?
Right.
Buyers that buy every relevant step of the sale. See, one of the things that we get in trouble is we
That's
think that
brilliant.
this. Oh, it really is.
As simple as that is brilliant. But sorry, keep going.
Oh, no, no, no. It's like people will go, really? I go, yeah. Back in the 80s, I spent, I think, $2,000 in 8 weeks to get that one little sentence that has made a huge difference in my career.
Yeah.
And so that first hello, that first handshake, that first return call is just as important as when somebody signs a contract or gives you a check.
Mm-hmm.
It's all parts of the same process. So one of the things that I help people with is to identify a process called now, later, never. And so when we meet someone, maybe there's a natural connection for us, and there is a need that either they can help us with or we can help them. That would be a now. Anything else is a later, or a never, and we don't know which one right now.
Right.
But if we go outside of their timing, what we're going to do is chase them and push them out of our process. They will see us as that slick, consummate salesperson. It's all about us. Press hard, 3 copies.
Right.
That type of sales never worked.
Yeah.
It never did. What
Yeah.
we did was we said it worked because of volume.
Right.
But what we did is we had a lot of people out there that really hated salespeople, and people became so adverse to being a salesperson because they didn't like it being done to themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it's really helping people to understand that the networking, the relationship, is the most important.
Right.
When I meet someone, I know that 95 or more percent of the time, they're not an immediate connection for me,
Right.
but they have needs. And so what I have done is became what I call a master networker. I open my Rolodex. I introduce people. Well, you've talked about that.
Yes,
You know,
you're amazing at this.
it's so much fun because
Yeah.
people are number one, it's a pattern interrupt because everybody else is saying, what's in it for me? What's in it for
Right.
me? I want you to buy something. I want you to engage. And I'm
Yes.
saying, it's in your timing. By the way, how can I help you?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a true desire.
Yeah.
So as I do that, then I become a trusted resource. And as a resource, people will come to me. They'll go, "Hey, you know everybody," or like, the way I say it is, if I don't know who to send you to, I'm one phone call away from knowing who to send you to.
Right.
Don't take referral fees. I
Yeah.
mean, that's just part of it. So it's for the connection's sake, and it really feels good.
Yeah. No, and you really are a master. I mean, from the minute, I mean, when I first met you, we talked for almost 2.5 hours just getting to know each other, and it was absolutely amazing. But that is the real connection of, and I love that, because giving and the relationship that happens from that, I mean, it's just so powerful when people get outside of that, because other people I'll talk to, it's like, nope, they want me to buy their services right away, and it's just like, that tension's there, and then that feeling stays, that never goes away.
Right.
So I think that's absolutely brilliant. So we've covered three of the steps now. So what I want to cover, and I think this is the one that I think has the biggest debate out there, is conquering your fear of success. Mm-hmm. And I want you to talk about that, because there's always is it fear of success or is it fear of failure? And I think what you're talking about, I agree with completely here, is the fear of success. So let's talk about that and how people can really push past that and I think, well, I'll let you go there and then I'll come back with my last question. I got so many questions.
Good. What it comes down to is people really think, and I think we're shifting in the industry, that it used to be the fear of failure.
Right.
But when we look at it, if it truly was the fear of failure, people would never have left their jobs, would never have gone into business in the first place.
Right.
And so now the fear of success is really a misnomer as well, I think. Mm-hmm. What we have is underlying beliefs that are stopping us from engaging in the results that we desire. The most common belief that I find is a belief of "I don't deserve." That is huge. And it's better to give than to receive.
Right.
About 2 years ago, I met the gentleman that owns the largest black entertainment internet network in the world.
Oh, wow.
And we were sitting next to each other, and we were in a mastermind together. And by the way, that's also something I recommend, get in mastermind. Mm-hmm. But we were in a mastermind together, and he had said something about, being stuck or something. And I asked him the question, just kind of, I follow my intuition. I go, is it better to give or to receive? And he goes, oh, it's much better to give. You've got to give. And I said, then let me ask you this question. How do you give out of an empty bucket? If we haven't received first, what is there to give? And he started to answer me, and then that pattern interrupt happened, and he goes, oh, shoot. It's like... And I have forever. I fall into it myself. If there's a line, a food line, I'll put everybody else through. And if there's anything left over, great. If there isn't, my attitude is, well, I'll get it next time.
Right.
But if we really look back to the airplane, stories, when you enter a commercial airliner, what is the first thing they tell you? They go through the emergency drills, right?
Yep.
And what about the oxygen mask? When the oxygen mask comes down, you're supposed to put it on. But if you're traveling with an aged person or a young person, who gets the mask first?
Yourself.
Why?
Because you are going to pass out if you don't, and you're both going to die.
Oh, absolutely. That is absolutely correct. Because you almost have maybe 2 seconds at that altitude before you literally pass out, and you won't be able to help. Right. Plus, the person next to you is also flailing about. They're not just sitting there calmly going, let me put this on you.
Right.
And so isn't that the same way around the economy?
Yeah.
What is the best way to help our neighbor is to be successful, and then help them to be successful as well.
Exactly.
And so this fear of success is really guilt. We are so guilty that we are succeeding, and then we turn on the TV and there's starving children in India, and all this other stuff that's heart-wrenching.
Right.
But yet it's about what can we do with the money. See, one of the old adages is money good or bad?
Right.
It's neither.
Right.
Money. Let me ask you this. Oh, this is fun. If I was to ask you, is money logical or emotional? What would you tell me it is?
Oh, I'd say emotional.
Okay. And when I do this with audiences, I get a 50-50 split.
Yep.
And I take out $100 bill and I tear it.
Yep.
And now almost 100% of the people now go to the emotional because here's another belief. We have been taught not to,
rip. Yeah.
to rip, to destroy money.
Yep.
So I asked them this question: what is this $100 bill?
Right. Paper.
And they go, and that's the answer. It's paper with ink on it.
Yep.
So then the question is, can paper with ink either be emotional or logical?
No.
No. Exactly. So it's a reflection.
Right.
If we treat it logically, it will treat us back logically. If we treat it emotionally, it treats us back emotionally.
Right.
And so this connects with attaining wealth and attaining success. And also, what does that mean? See, when I look at wealth, it's wealth in all areas of life.
Right.
If we make a lot of money and lose our physical health, what good is it? If we lose our families in the process, if we don't have that balance and that equal emphasis on the wheel of basically life,
right,
then it's not good either. But if we have all this good family but no money, now we're out of balance again.
Yeah.
But in this day and age, in this society, money is the thing that greases everything. It's the oil in the engine.
Yep.
And so the fear of success, again, is really that guilt producing. And and we don't have to go through all this today, but I'd like to give everyone 2 words that really works out really well. When we start hearing this, because it'll be in your mind, it'll be like that little voice.
Mm-hmm.
And that little voice and that's a whole process, and we'll deal with it another time. But there's 2 words that will help with that little voice toning down, or actually saying okay and being able to wait. And instead of saying go away, shut up,
right,
say not now. Not now says I've heard you and there will be a time to consider it, but not now. So who do you think you are? And years ago, even from family, people have said, who do you think you are? You're that rich so-and-so on the hill. And they have no idea what we're going through.
Right.
They have no idea what, and so it's their own perception.
Yep.
So I want to make everybody happy. I want to make everybody like me. So the voice is saying, stop doing and stop giving and stop making a difference. And so it once we say that not now, it really gives us permission to move forward.
That is really powerful, because it's giving recognition to the voice that's, jumping out there to warn you, or whatever's going on, and then you give it recognition. You say, okay, not now. I love that. I think that's brilliant, because it's something that everybody can do, because there's so many different philosophies out there, like automatically switch it to positive, or do this or do that. And I think with what you're doing, it's like the money. It's not logical, it's not emotional. It's just saying, hey, let's just table it, and then you can keep moving forward. I think that's really brilliant. So okay, so I love that, and I really like that you talk about with the guilt, because I think if we realize that about ourselves, it's again giving it recognition and understanding where it's coming from, so you can move forward and realize it's not a fear of success, it's not a fear of failure, and where you're coming from to help other people. And you just said so many brilliant things there, especially with the receiving. So the one question I wanted to ask you then is, how do you? Because I've seen this over and over again at every seminar I go to, where people aren't open to receiving even just a compliment. Like one of my friends here, I don't know if you know, Laura Wade. She just moved here to Denver. She was out on her birthday. She just turned whatever, and she was giving all these presents out to people. And she was like, I was so surprised at how taken aback and scared people were, like afraid of me actually giving them something nice, and people aren't open to receiving. She said, all the people that I met, like maybe 2 people were open to it. So what are some ways that people can work on that? Because I think that's huge.
As far as giving or the response?
The receiving part.
Yeah, I call it the duck syndrome.
Yeah.
Where, it's raining, but the water just runs right off of us.
Yeah.
And part of it is, okay, when we're in the public eye, when we're on stage, I get a lot of PR. There's things going out, there's news, but what I tell my coaching clients is, when you start believing your own PR, you're in trouble.
I love that.
It's not about getting a big head.
Right.
And here's the real key. It's not about us. It's about our message.
Right.
So it's not about me, it's about my product or the widget or the service that I provide. So anyone in whatever they're doing, if we get ourselves out of it, but then stay in it, is that we're the facilitator.
Right.
And so we can really start engaging in that. Okay, I did take the risk. I am someone of quality, of clarity, of, it's and it's going to feel weird. It really will. I mean, we have so been trained. There's no I in team.
Right.
I mean, from sports, from everything else. But if people cannot see us, they cannot engage with us.
Right.
And that's why, as people write books, and I really recommend writing books. In fact, I just had an email from somebody over the weekend that it's been hard for me with a book because everybody wants you to autograph it.
Oh.
And I'm going, autograph it. Like, I go to a particular restaurant here in Denver for the last 15 years. When they found out that a book was coming out, they said, "Oh, we want one. We want you to autograph it." And I'm going, "You get my autograph every week. What are you talking about?" I go, why? But I remember that when I'm around an author or someone, a musician or a CD, I'd like to have them sign it. It's something that makes it a little more special.
Yeah.
But over the weekend, I get this email that I had sat next to a woman on the way back from Chicago about 3 years ago. And you get this, well, who are you? And, it was an author. And it was the Beaver book. And so they came in, they lived in Colorado Springs. They came up a couple of times. Well, a neighbor of mine in my neighborhood ended up meeting this couple in Amarillo at a hotel. They had dinner in Denver here about a week ago, and they started talking about this guy with, diagnosed with MS. And they go, and so here's two people with the same book that were totally, happenstance, but I was the commonality.
Yeah.
Another time I was on my way from Daytona Beach to Atlanta, and there was two women. It was 7 o'clock in the morning, early morning flight. You've been on them. Nobody wants to be there. No. But these two ladies came in and they were just hyped. And my kind of people, we're having fun. We're just going nuts. Turns out they were two executives with Humana, and they were on their way to Dallas to a leadership conference. And so I came around about what did I do? And I said, well, I'm a high performance business and sales coach. I'm a international speaker, and I'm an author. And they go, "You're an author?" And I go, yeah. And here's the key point. They go, "Are you famous?" And everything inside of me started, that little voice said, "Oh, no, I'm just the guy next door, nothing special, whatever." Right. But what came out, and I don't know where it came from, was, well, some people think so. And the woman on the aisle went down into her carry-on, pulled out a camera with a lens that long, and she said, "Could I take your picture? Just in case."
Just in case.
And so here's the flashes going up. People are wondering who in the world this guy is.
Yeah.
And I did the cardinal sin. I had run out of books. I didn't have any to give them. But just before we landed in Atlanta, they both leaned over and they said, "Do you have a business card?" And I said, "Absolutely." And they said, "Would you autograph your business card for us?" So part of this is allowing it not to be about us, but about the connection.
Right.
About the story. And so when it's about the relationship, we can own our own background.
Yeah.
I do a process at the boot camp that says you don't know who you're sitting next to. And it's really important to really, be a part of the story, because everyone has a story. Everyone is special.
Right.
And when we own that, then we become interesting.
Right.
When we're interesting, people will remember us. And that's really what we want.
Yep.
But what they won't remember our name, but they'll remember the story.
Yeah.
People will say, they won't even remember my face at times, and then they go, "Oh, you're the Beaver guy."
Yeah. Yeah.
Go figure.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of great nuggets in there, and I love that about you, Gary. Though you really are. I mean, you have graced some of the top stages in the world with some of the biggest names, and you're just so down to earth, and you're so easy to connect with. And it's all about the stories. I mean, everything that you share, and there's always a lesson and a nugget of wisdom in everything that you share in those stories, and that's why people love you and remember you. So that's a great piece for everybody to understand of incorporating that in their business and and what they're doing. Because it is true. They don't remember your face, they don't remember your name, but they will remember, the little story that we talked about. So I think this is brilliant. So we've covered a lot of the steps. The last one that we're going to be able to cover today is getting out the door then with your ideas in that ambitious project. So let's talk about that and how you help people move forward.
Well, I teach a process called launch and adjust. And here's the question, or I have what's now called Garyisms. My little statements that I've used over and over again.
I love it.
And I didn't create it. This is what's really neat. When we listen, our clients are people that are around us, and they started saying, hey, yeah, that's a Garyism, that's a Garyism. And so now I have that. And it's actually, we have a book coming out in about 30 days of the Garyisms.
Oh, good.
Really, but here is one, that an airplane is on... okay, now that I have to remember.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah, I know. An airplane is on course 100% of the time on the ground.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's brilliant. I love it.
In the air, it's off course 99.9% of the time.
Right.
And so if we don't launch and adjust, we don't know what works. Going back to Edison and the light bulb, 9,999 ways that he failed, quote. And he said, no, I found out 9,999 ways that it didn't work. Right. But each time he was able to adjust to find out what he could do differently to get a result that he ultimately wanted.
Yes.
Most of the time we create products and services and we want to make them so perfect. People will write War and Peace, or they'll just want that online course or whatever. Yeah. It's just like, it has to be. There was an author, Lori Jeffers, I think, if I got it right. She wrote Jesus CEO, which is, it sounds like a religious book, but it was really a corporate book. She's an advertising executive. But she tells a story about herself where she went up to a sculpting class and they were doing soapstones anyway, they were carving soapstone, and everybody was supposed to do a bird. And everybody started, and she was looking at it, and the instructor stopped everybody and said, look, Lori's going to carve the Last Supper. First time out. We don't know what it is that,
right.
And more importantly, unless we launch, we don't know really what the response, what the community, what our perfect client is looking for, what they're wanting.
Right.
And so we are now becoming the best mousetrap in the world that nobody can see.
Right.
And that's also fear producing. All of these elements really intertwine.
Yeah.
Because what if I launch and nobody shows up?
Yep.
How many times have
totally.
I put out the invitation for a boot camp or for a teleseminar or whatever. I go, every time it's like saying I'm going to have a birthday party, and what if nobody loves me?
Right. What if no one shows up?
And so, but this is where we can get beyond ourselves as well. Mm-hmm. The people that really engage well with this are the ones that really truly believe that what they have to offer is essential. It will change people's lives. Right. And it could be as simple as selling toothpicks. I don't believe that there's any product or service out there that at some point is not a necessary element to improve a person's existence.
Right.
Really. I mean, if it came into our awareness as something of benefit, it has a relevance. If it didn't, it wouldn't.
Well, yeah. I mean, I look at all of the tens of thousands of dollars of products I've spent on, and whether some are good, some aren't, but every single one of them was something I needed to hear, to see, to learn, to move forward. Even if it was the teeniest little thing, like that course, that even though it's one teeny little sentence that sounds so simple to the ordinary, just listening, it's so powerful. And how to use it and take it. So I think that's brilliant. And I think if more people recognize that, because I think that's what I see a lot with a lot of people, and I used to be there too, where we don't believe in ourselves enough that we really, truly can make that big of a difference in that many people's lives. But just getting started with that one person starts to snowball.
Well, and that's not to say that I want people to jump out of airplanes without a parachute.
Right.
There are some preliminary. So yeah, we don't want to be dumb.
Right.
And we're just going to go out and blast it out before it's really ready. We're not going to take a cake out of the oven before it's cooked.
Right.
Where the end result's not going to be pretty either.
Yep.
But it is something that unless we launch, we don't know. And then also, see, this is again going back to the receiving.
Yeah.
If I have a not deserving, not a failure of success model that is going on guilt of receiving,
Right.
then will we launch? The idea, most likely, we will make excuses
Right.
that it's really not good enough yet, and I've just got to wait till it's, quote, perfect.
So what's the fine line between that? What's the point that you have your clients launch at where, it's not quite perfect, it's not quite ready, but it's not, you know what I mean? The balance between those two.
If it's usable. In other words, if the material is there, and I think most of the time we give people way too much information. We do what I call information constipation.
Yeah, overload.
And so it's overload. People won't do it. My books, well, you've seen them. They're small.
Yeah.
And people were telling me they were airplane books. And I started getting embarrassed and, kind of like, well, what? And they go, no. We can read it on a flight. And if it was any bigger, we would not have bought the book.
Wow. Yeah.
And so what we have done is that we think more is better. And really it isn't.
Right.
We have to be able to give people information in bite-sized pieces or products or processes in bite-sized pieces so they can assimilate them and use it.
Yeah.
It's almost like in a flood. Water's not bad, but too much water is bad.
Exactly. And I learned that the hard way because I used to train long periods of time. Now I just do 15, 20-minute chunks and people are taking action. They're like, boom, get it out there.
I can do this.
Yes.
I can do this.
Yes. It's simple. It's something that they can take and implement right then and there. And so I love that. That's a huge piece, really. Because if you can get more people taking action on your products, they become your advocates. I mean, it's brilliant. So this has been absolutely amazing. What we've covered in just an hour with these 5 steps is so powerful. So what other tips do you have for entrepreneurs to help them move forward out of that state of fear?
I think it is the launch and adjust. Get out there, turn on the light. One other thing, and it just occurred to me that we haven't covered, is to do this little homework. And that is to sit down with a piece of paper and describe your perfect client. What do they look like? What are the personalities you enjoy working with? What are the, all of the elements?
Yep, the avatar. Love it.
And I'll give you 2 of the things that should be on everybody's list. Number 1, does your perfect client have money? Mm-hmm. Number 2, do they have the willingness to invest that dollar? If they don't have those 2 things, then they're not your perfect client. Mm-hmm. And I know that, we most of the people, I should say, pretty much all of the people I deal with, really have not only just the money mindset, but also a heart set.
Yeah.
We want to make a difference, but we're going to do it in a way that really makes permanent results and also connect the revenue resources to that as well.
Right.
But if I had a gentleman come up to me after our talk, and he said, he was selling high-end travel. And he goes, I give a talk and everybody's so excited. And, it comes to the point of, well, great, let's go. And here's the kind. They go, well, we have no money. And he goes, Gary, what do I do? What am I doing wrong? And I said, you're not doing anything wrong except fishing in the wrong pond.
Exactly.
And so really what it is, he wanted to help these people and really to give it to everyone, when in reality he was being mean to those people because he was sharing something that they wanted, but they had no way of engaging with.
Right.
So there could be some other things he could do with them on a different level of saying, okay, how can you do it? But that wasn't what he was in business for.
Yeah.
He did that little shift because he was feeling guilty that he wasn't offering it to everyone and giving everyone the same, but they weren't ready for it.
Exactly.
So it's like giving a little lollipop to a little kid, take a lick, and then you can't have it.
Yeah, that is one of probably the biggest lessons that I've learned in my career, and what I see with my clients too is it's just, and I don't know who said it, but if it's not working in one room, you just shift your audience. It's not necessarily even your pitch, because people then go back to pick on themselves. Oh, it's this, it's that, but it's the audience of who you're in front of. And I love that. having the resources, and then willing to spend it. That is brilliant, Gary. It really is. So getting really clear and in tune with that and recognizing when it's not and just letting it go. I think that's another thing.
And that goes back to the now, later, never.
Yes.
Is that a connection right now, or is it a later or a never?
Yep. Brilliant. Well, the only last question that I have, because we've just whipped through this hour so quickly, I want to definitely have you back. But I want to ask you, if you had to start over today, and the $1 million question, you didn't have any resources or any of the connections that you've created over the years, what would you do to rebuild your empire?
Meet more people faster.
Meet more people faster.
That's what it comes down to. We're so technologically inclined today. By getting out there, I tell people, if you don't want to meet me and be my best friend, don't sit next to me on an airplane. I'll be at airports. I'll talk to people. I'll put out my hand and say, hi, what are you doing? Where you're going? I'll get their story out of them. And those relationships, and here's the real key. It's not about what I could get them for them to do for me. It's about what I could do for them.
Right.
And so how could I be that connector? And, it is magical because it's at 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah.
Is that as we understand that we are all connected very closely with everyone else in the world, outside of technology. This was true before we had the internet and social media and all this other great tools, the podcasts and all the things that we have to reach so many more people.
Yeah.
But that is still a non-touch. Now, how do we do that touch and then create a personal touch along with it?
Right.
When we combine the two, when I started, we didn't have all of this stuff. I mean, this is so exciting to me because I see people starting out now and I'm going, what took me maybe 3, 4, 5 years to really build a foundation can be done in 3, 4, 5 months.
I know. It's amazing.
It's just a matter of being willing to allow the light to shine on you and allow people to see you, because that's an exposure. Yes. That's also another fear. And so, because it's one last thing with this, we could go forever, is that here's a fear that a lot of us have, is that if people really saw me for what I am and see my foibles and all my flaws and everything, they won't want to deal with me or like me or, and it's not true, because we're all us.
Exactly.
And people want to deal with people just like them. Now, they don't want us to be still in the mess.
Right.
They want us to say, okay, you're out there. Because people will ask me, what's the right road, Gary? And I go, well, there's only one road. And they look at me and I go, yes, there's only one road. We're just at different mile markers. And when we understand that, then we can be human. We can reach out and be real.
Yep.
And prosper, because we're going as a community, not as lone wolves.
Exactly. Oh, I love that we're all at different mile markers. I think it's so brilliant. That's just amazing. So this has been such an honor and a pleasure to have you here, and I definitely want to have you back in the future. But all of the information will be in the show notes, and where we can get Gary's actual bonus for the On Purpose. What is it? Did I mess it up?
No. On Purpose Results Action Guide.
Perfect. Yes, which is going to take you through the whole 10-step process, which is brilliant. And so where can everybody find out about you?
Gary at GaryBarnesInternational.com is my direct email, and I do answer everyone personally. It's amazing. It will be short email responses. But I do, because I want that connection. I really enjoy that. Or they can call the office at 303-989-0066.
Perfect. Well, we'll have all that in the show notes. And then as bonus, just opt in over at lifestyleacademy.com/Gary/Barnes. And I'll have that in the notes as well for everything. But again, thank you. This has been absolutely amazing, Gary. So great to have you here, and can't wait to have you back.
Well, it's my privilege. I love you, and you're doing amazing work, and it's fun to run with eagles.
Oh, you're such a sweetheart. It's been such a pleasure meeting you, and I just can't wait to keep up where we're going here with what we've started.
Cool.
All right, thank you. And I hope you enjoyed that episode. I'd love to get your feedback here for the Lifestylepreneur podcast right in iTunes. Simply leave us a 5-star and a review letting us know what you like, who you're interested in hearing more from, and what topics you really want help with in your business, that I can bring on those key experts to really fine tune and help you in your business and creating the lifestyle of your dreams. And I'll be giving shout outs, so make sure you put your name and your website address if you want me to share that with the community as well. And again, thanks for listening. I'm so excited that you found the Lifestylepreneur podcast, and I can't wait to connect with you and learn more about your business as we continue to grow this community. So again, have a great day, and I'll talk to you next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Lifestylepreneur podcast. Again, I'm Kris Gilbertson, and I'm committed to bringing you top training from leading lifestylepreneurs all over the world to help you break through and turn your dreams into your ideal lifestyle. And make sure to join us at www.lifestyleacademy.com to receive VIP training from specific guests I interview on the show, so that you can really easily start to implement what you've learned from listening. I know we're all busy, and sometimes we don't have time to listen to the entire podcast or take notes, because I'm always listening on the go. So I like to call it the Lifestyle Cliff Notes to creating your ideal business and make it really simple for you. So those will be sent via the email list. Plus, I also want to connect with you personally, and being on the Lifestyle Academy mailing list is where all the magic happens. We'll host VIP trainings once a month that we can't always bring out on the podcast with even more detailed information. And I also want to connect with you personally. I want to know what's going on in your business and what you need help with, and who I can bring on to aid you in creating your ideal lifestyle. And so I'll be asking questions every once in a while that I want you to reply, and I reply back to you personally. So again, until next time, wishing you on your way to achieving all of your dreams. Talk to you soon.